Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Jessica Proud, and we're here today with a very special guest, Rye Councilwoman and Deputy Mayor Julie Killian. She's a candidate for State Senate. Julie, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for asking me to be here. I'm thrilled.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Why did you decide to run for State Senate this year?
Well, I'll go back a little bit. I was born in Mount Vernon back in the 60s, but I actually ended up growing up in Connecticut because my parents, with 6 kids, they couldn't afford to stay in Westchester. So it's been expensive for a long time down here. But after college, after studying chemical engineering at Notre Dame, I came back to New York, got an MBA, worked in the financial industry, and then 25 years ago, my husband and I moved to Rye without kids, and now we have 5. So I have been retired from my financial services career for a number of years and been raising my kids, getting involved in the community and a lot in my kids' schools and the art center and the library and various organizations around town. I'm involved at a soup kitchen and social services agency in the Bronx. I was on the Westchester County Charter Revision Commission and recently started a drug and alcohol coalition in Rye, which maybe we can talk about more later. But why I'm running. I got involved in my city government 4 years ago when I was put on the city council on an open seat. I've run twice since then. I was just appointed deputy mayor this year, and that's been an amazing experience serving the public. So the day that I decided to run was January 22nd of 2015. I woke up and saw on my iPhone that Shelley Silver had been arrested. And that's when I thought, you know what, if he's out of Albany, maybe there really can be change there. And after that, Dean Skelos got arrested, so we have new leadership in Albany, and I basically can't take it anymore. I'm tired of the corruption, the old boys network, go along to get along. Too many career politicians in Albany, so I thought I'd step up. So here I am today running for New York State Senate for the 37th District in Lower Westchester.
Well, that sounds like a great reason to me. Can you tell voters what your top priorities will be if you are elected?
One of my top priorities is term limits. I just feel without moving people through Albany, we were going to keep the go along to get along culture. So we need new people there, and always a new stream of people. So I think New York State would be a very different place today, a better place if we had had term limits over the last 25 years. I think we do need additional ethics reform in taking away pensions from politicians that are convicted of crimes from their office. I think they should not be allowed to use campaign funds for legal fees when they do something wrong. There's too many things in Albany that now that really almost support them being corrupt, and we need deterrences from being corrupt. But really, I think about the kids, I think about the seniors, I think about the people in our community, and then I think about we need more school aid in Westchester. Westchester is absolutely discriminated against by Albany. In the regional cost index that's assigned to us, that is too low, and they view Westchester as a wealthy county, which it is, but not every municipality is. And one of the great things about Westchester is we are so varied, and we have so many different people here, which it's been an exciting thing going around the district meeting people. But we really need help. We need help in all our schools, but we need help in Yonkers and Mount Vernon and Port Chester and New Rochelle and White Plains. So anyway, more school aid for Westchester. A big priority of mine is also the substance abuse issue. It's just a shame what's going on in our communities. It's heartbreaking what's going on. I started back in 2011 thinking about the problem, and at the time, I was thinking about there's excessive drinking, excessive pot smoking, and what can we do about it? And parents were kind of throwing up their arms, like everybody does it. There's nothing we can do, and I thought there's got to be a better way. So I started working, trying to figure out what to do about that. We eventually came to putting together a coalition, which Larchmont and Mamaroneck has had radar for 20 years, which is, kudos to them for being on this problem for a really long time. But I'm happy to report that our coalition, which is RYE ACT, RYE Action for Children and Teens, just this week received a federal grant, which will be $125,000 a year, first for 5 years and then a 5-year renewable period. So that will be a total of almost $1.3 million just coming into RYE. For help on the problem. And the nice thing about the coalition is it is a coalition, which means we have the entire community involved in working towards this problem, and that means the police, the clergy, the schools, parents, kids, the RYE Youth Council, and all the other great organizations in RYE, like the RYE Wise. So I'm really, really, really proud of that, but I do feel strongly that we need action on the federal level, the state level, and the local level. And on the state level, one of the things I'm going to call for is a statewide digital campaign to get to the kids where they live, which is on their phones. And we have spent, New York has spent over $50 million on a Startup New York advertising campaign, which I think is a complete waste of money. I would like to see us put that money into a campaign to teach our kids about the dangers of drugs. And I care deeply about the small business community. And helping them, and then certainly the reason that we need such a vibrant economy is that will allow us to pay for all the other things that we feel near and dear about and that are really important, like funding the arts, cleaning up the environment, and helping those with special needs.
Well, and I wanted to ask you because a new report just came out recently showing New York is losing more of its residents than any other state. The taxpayers are literally fleeing New York to go to other states, and we're also losing our top earners, people that they classify as making $200,000 or more, which, in Westchester, $200,000 doesn't even go that far. But what does that mean for the state? What does that mean for the state's economy, for our schools, and how can we fix that?
Well, it's the sad thing is there's so many things that we are last in that are bad. Worst business climate, worst place to retire. Sadly, we're the best, and most people leaving. It's again. I said heartbreaking before, and that's heartbreaking too. There's so many amazing people in New York. For me, I think it's the greatest state in the world. New York City is certainly the greatest city in the world, and I want to stay here and fight for it. I think we've sort of survived and limped along despite the bad policies in New York, but we could be so much better. And really, it's so important to keep our community affordable so we can keep our seniors, and we want our kids to come back here and be able to work and find jobs and have that vibrant community. And there are lots of things that we can do at the state level. Just there's too many bureaucrats, too much bureaucratic regulation, and it really does stifle our economy. I met a man last night in New Rochelle who said because of Startup New York, he wanted to start a business. When he started to go through the process, he said it was so onerous with the paperwork to do anything that he stopped. And that's wrong. That's just wrong. So I think I'm really optimistic that with new leadership in Albany, with new people going there, that we will be able to start more of a conversation, because one of the biggest problems in Albany is people don't speak up. And that's something that I'm good at, and I can work with anybody. I don't care what party you are. I can work with anybody to make things better. But I think so much of it is actually starting the conversation and talking about things. And my sense in Albany is there's a lot of hush, hush, hush. Don't talk about that.
Well, and to your point about term limits, the terms are every 2 years. So what happens is you end up getting elected, and then you have to turn around and start focusing on your reelection again. So maybe what's happening up there is a lot of legislators are thinking, oh, I can't talk about that because it's politically sensitive, and they just kind of go along to get along. I mean, why should voters care so much about term limits? Some people make the argument that it's better to stay in office because, they've had experience and they know how everything works. But why should voters really care about that?
Well, experience can be important, and, I'll be going hopefully to Albany with 4 years of legislative experience in RYE. But often when you're new, you ask questions that nobody else is asking, because maybe you're a little naive and you're asking questions, and that's what we need. We don't need people up there like, oh, we can't get that done. We've never been able to. We can't get that done. My question is going to be, and the priorities that I have, which are term limits, getting the regional cost index for the schools fixed, and getting some more funding for substance abuse. I'm going to talk about those things and ask those questions. And if somebody says we can't do it, I'm like, but wait, why? So I think when you've been there too long, you just get used to the way things are done, and you don't ask enough questions. And it's just, you're right. I would love to do campaign finance reform. I don't believe in public funding of campaigns, because then I think the taxpayers are on the hook for a lot of campaign dinners and campaign
we've seen
computers and the corruption. I don't think that's the solution at all. But it is the system as we have it today. A couple people have asked me, do you think there should be longer terms? Down in Washington, we have Senate 6 years and House is 2 years. I don't know if that's the answer. If it is, it's definitely something to look at. But it is unfortunate the minute that people get in office, they have to turn around and they start fundraising to all the special interests. So I get frustrated by the special interests, because I really think there should only be one special interest, and that's the hardworking citizens of New York State, and certainly hardworking citizens of Westchester County.
Absolutely. Well, I know recently you had a press conference, I think, announcing that you would term limit yourself, and an online petition. Where can people go to sign up to join the cause for term limits?
They can go to my website, juliekillian.com. Part of what I think when I see the corruption and see that the last 5 heads of the New York State Senate have gone to jail, 39 legislators since 2000 have gone to jail. I can't believe people aren't marching on Albany now saying we deserve better, because we do. So I'm hoping that this petition can go viral, and we can show the legislators in Albany and the leadership in Albany and the governor in Albany that we need term limits and we need new ideas and fresh ideas there.
Well, and one of the things that you've talked about a lot is, you did mention you're a mom of 5 kids, and we all know moms know how to get things done, but you've said that that's really helped you and shape you in governing on the local level, and that you can take that with you to Albany to be effective. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, being a mom, you have to do a lot of negotiating as a mom, and I think every mom knows that you don't really have a choice. You have to get things done, and you have to deal with your kids, different personalities, can't hide things under the rug, got to talk about stuff. And one thing, and I make the analogy to Washington, like I've always said to my kids, if someone's getting bullied and you're standing there, you're as much a part of the problem if you don't stop it. And I would say the same thing about Albany. People have to speak out. So, I have the support of a lot of women in this area, and a lot of people say to me, girl power, we need more women in elected office, and I agree with that. But, as a mom, I've been through a lot with my kids, and seen a lot out there, and I just feel like that will definitely help me when I get up to Albany and dealing with everybody up there.
Yes, because there are so few women currently serving in the Senate. So if you look at the gender dynamic, it's you have maybe a handful of women serving in the Senate. So I think most women would argue that they would like to see a little bit more equitable distribution.
The Women's Caucus of the New York State Senate, or the Women's Caucus in Albany. Yeah, I'm fully confident that I can work with anybody, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, who's ever up there, men and women, to get things done. And in my heart, I know there's got to be people up there that will work with me and want to get things done, because our taxpayers and our citizens deserve a lot better than what they're getting.
So, that's a good point to bring up, because there is such a partisan divide right now. You're seeing it in the presidential race. You see it on the state level. Democrats go in one corner, Republicans go in another corner. How do you bring people together to compromise, or do you think it's better that people stand on principle for what they believe in?
Standing on principle and being so hard and fast about that, I don't think always works. I would never tell anyone to leave their principles. I think you need to have your core values. I think you need to have some things that you're passionate about, and go to the mat on those things to get things done. And I just think when there's an open dialogue, I've been successful on city council for over 4 years now by having open dialogue with people. And I often go to the people who I might not agree with first to get their side of the story. And it's when you get into things, and people think things are so black and white, and they're really not. And I know that I can find common ground with people. And, I think deep down, everybody wants the best for their families, for the citizens of the state. It's just that it just doesn't end up working out that way when people are in office for too long, and that's what we need to change. But I'm fully confident that we can work across the aisle, all of us. I think there's the media sometimes makes things more partisan than what I've seen, and I'm a Republican. I don't self-identify that way, and people say to me, "You don't sound like a Republican to me when you're talking." And I said, "Good," because I don't put people in a box. Like, oh, if you're a Democrat, you're all for the environment and you hate business, or if you're Republican, like, you love business and you don't care about people with special needs. Like, I just don't believe that. It's not who I am. I don't believe that. People like to put you in a box, but I don't do that, and I think that's one of the reasons that I'm successful at getting things done.
Yeah, well, that's certainly refreshing to hear, because you don't hear that out of politicians too much these days. Yeah. I want to go back to a minute about the school aid. You said that Westchester kids are getting shortchanged, and we've certainly seen evidence of that over the past several decades. How, for someone that doesn't understand how the school aid formula works, can you just walk us through that and how you can actually change the system? Why do kids in Long Island get more money than we do in Westchester? They're equitable in terms of income.
Well, kids in Long Island and kids in New York City have gotten more than our kids in Westchester because they have had legislators that have fought for them. So that's one thing I want to do in Albany: fight for our kids and fight for their parents, who, if we get more school aid, will have lower property taxes. There's one very specific thing that I would like to change, and that's the regional cost index. And it's just, school aid is very complicated, and they have formulas, but then they always have carve-outs. And if you're powerful enough up there, you get a carve-out for your area. But I think we should get rid of all the loopholes in the carve-outs, both in the tax system and the school aid, and have it much more straightforward. But right now, Westchester has assigned a regional cost index that matches upstate in Kingston and Poughkeepsie. It does not match the cost index that's Long Island and New York City, which is where we are. And the numbers are, the cost index we're assigned is 1.318. We should be assigned 1.425. So when you put that into school aid, it's just a calculation. But it sounds like a little teeny difference, but when you multiply it across the districts, across the schools, across the enrollment, it's a lot. It's a lot of money. And I will also fight to get back the gap elimination adjustment money. My opponent and all the other New York City Democrats and others voted that in 2009 and 2010, and then they all spent time voting to get rid of it. So I don't get this whole, like, you voted in and then you vote to get rid of it. That money is ours in our district. In particular, it's $185 million. Now, they've gotten rid of the gap elimination adjustment now, so going forward, it doesn't exist. But that's $185 million that the state owes us. So there is now talk about looking at the school aid formulas. It's just literally the last 2 weeks. There's been a lot of talk about that, and that's a welcome conversation. But I will fight to change that regional cost index when I get to Albany.
Well, we certainly pay our fair share in taxes and send quite a boatload of money up to Albany, so it would be nice to see that money come back into our schools. We're here in the Sound Shore. Obviously, the environment is a big issue. Tell us what you can do at the state level, and if that's a priority for you.
Oh, it's a huge priority. One of the reasons we came to the Sound Shore is because of the beautiful sound and the access to it and being able to use it. Right now there's for the local municipalities, there's a big issue. We're actually getting sued by Save Our Town with inflow and infiltration of the sewer systems, and that's a huge burden on the municipalities. But we've got to do it. We've got to fix it so that we're stopping, bad stuff from going into the sound. And I would like to see more help at the state level. Right now, in Rye, and the communities are working together because there has been a lawsuit that we're fighting, but the communities are working together to fix the problem, or we're starting to work together. But right now we're figuring out how the problem is, and in Rye in particular, we're spending almost $500,000 just to identify the problem. Fixing the problem is going to be millions, and we're going to need help at the state level for all our communities across the Sound Shore to fix that. But one little thing about the environment that I'm proud of in Rye, I was a bit involved with bringing oysters. We're trying to bring oysters back to Rye. So we're starting in a little teeny way. There's a Billion Oyster Project in New York, and some of our Rye Middle School science teachers have created a new program, and we actually put this past spring an oyster cage into Rye Harbor. And the kids are monitoring, and that to me, that's like a total home run. Because ultimately it's going to take a lot of years. We could get an oyster business back in our waters, and the oysters clean up the water. It's amazing what they do for the water. And there's a lot of my district is not right on the Sound, and for all of us focusing on renewable energy and looking at kind of all of the above options and doing everything we can for renewables and promoting them in New York. And one good thing, New York State had a lot of different programs, and I found them incredibly confusing to engage with as a city council person, but also as a citizen. They have put them more into one program, and it is hard navigating, but there is help out there to get there. But making it as easy as possible for our residents to take advantage of the programs that New York State is promoting is another thing that I think is really important.
It is very confusing, and you mentioned those Startup New York ads before. I've seen them on the TV countless times saying New York is open for business, but as you said, people, we're dead last in business climate. We have the most people leaving the state. We have the worst economic outlook. What can we do to change that? I mean, it's very difficult to grow a business, to start a business and grow a business here.
And just as a little point on Startup New York, the man that stars in the ads has a business in Arizona that he promised to bring to New York, and 3 years later, he's still not brought it to New York. So,
well, Arizona, why would you leave Arizona and their amazing business climate to come here and pay the highest taxes, the highest energy costs?
And one of the reasons that I don't like Startup New York is because we're incenting new businesses to come to New York and giving them special tax breaks. I want to give tax breaks and help the people that are already here. Why aren't we helping the businesses and the people here? The small businesses are the backbone of our economy. They really are. And the big boys can hire accountants and lawyers to help them navigate through the regulations, but we have 750,000 business regulations in New York. You can't possibly know every time. They pass them all the time, constantly, just some new regulation. Then they fine you if you don't follow it. But half the time, the businesses don't even know. And I was in a small bookstore in Larchmont a couple weeks ago, and she was fined $250 because she didn't have her paper schedule on the wall. She said, all my employees look at the schedule on their phone. That works for us.
Unbelievable.
So why we require the schedule to be posted on the wall? So, $250 might not sound like a lot, but for a small business and an independent bookstore that we really want to help those kinds of places, that's wrong. That's wrong. And I could go on and on about what people have told me about the onerous regulations and the paperwork and how much time. And just, this is not a small business, but it's something that is incredibly important to me. I have always been an advocate for kids with special needs, especially kids with autism. And I have a child on the autism spectrum who right now is in college, which is amazing, but I have lots of friends and know lots of people with kids with much deeper developmental needs. New York State has recently changed the Office of People with Disabilities, OPWDD, has moved these kids into Medicaid and made it much more difficult for these people to get services. And it's also made it difficult for the groups that provide those services. They've said to me, they are now spending hours and hours and hours on paperwork, taking away from the programming that they're doing for these kids, and are also making it harder for these kids to get the services. Because you used to have to sign up for Medicaid when your child was 18. Now it's any age. So you start at 3, and your child, you're not thinking about signing your child up for Medicaid that they're going to be disabled for the rest of your life. That's not what you're thinking when they're 3. So it breaks my heart, and the amount of paperwork, the change in the regulations is bad, the amount of paperwork. So we really, that's something that I do want to focus on too. We have to help those parents and the kids. And many of them are in the low-income community, and if they can't get into a program for the kids, they don't have the money to pay for a private program. So so there's regulation everywhere in New York, and there's just no reason that it has to be that intense. We need to streamline things. That's the answer. Streamlining things is the answer, not adding more regulations, adding more paperwork, and then hiring more people to manage that, because that just adds to the problem.
So do you call for a moratorium and just go through? What can you do as senator?
They instituted a tax cap, which I was actually in agreement with the tax cap, because I do think it helps us control our costs, and it makes you look at what the costs are. And there's a higher threshold to pass a budget at the schools and at the city when you're going over the tax cap. I would like to see a higher threshold on increasing taxes and new regulation, and looking at the consequences of the regulations. And we don't do enough of that. We just have bureaucrats sitting in an office, and they create new things, and it's also just incredibly complicated. Even if you could, know where to go to get help, just figuring out what they all mean, it's incredibly complicated for the smartest people. And there's not enough help in people wading through the system either. So let's make things simpler and get people the services they need, get businesses the things that they need, so we can have a vibrant economy.
That's a great point, and I think you see a lot of people start, putting their businesses in New Jersey or Connecticut, because even though the Northeast tends to be less competitive than other states, other states are doing it, so why couldn't we do the same thing in New York? We're almost out of time today, but if there's one thing that you would like to leave voters with that are maybe undecided in this election, what do you want them to know about you?
That I'm open-minded, I'm passionate, and I will fight hard for every single citizen of Westchester when I get to Albany. And we need people to fight for us. There's not enough of that going on now, so I will fight to get things done.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You've heard a lot of great stuff from Julie Killian. She's a candidate for State Senate here in the Sound Shore. She's also a Rye City Councilwoman and Deputy Mayor. And the election is November 8th. November 8th. Is that correct? Okay, so just everyone make sure you get out to vote. And can people find your website?
JulieKillian.com.
Okay, and are you
sign my petition on term limits?
Yeah,
I'm on Facebook,
Twitter.
Julie Killian for NY Senate. I'm on Twitter, so find me there. We're having fun out on the campaign trail, and I've met so many interesting people and gone to so many great small businesses. So watch me out on the campaign trail. It's been fun.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.